Mere Conservatism.
And it is indeed Mere Conservatism, and David Perry and I'm Cleve Walker are definitely mere conservatives.
Sure, yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
I would say just basic, everyday guys that happen to be conservative in their political leanings, and conservatism informed by our faith. Our faith is the most important aspect of our worldview.
I actually had a listener to our podcast tell me what you just said. They said, I like the way you guys sound like just ordinary people. You don't sound like the pundits that everybody else comes as if they're the all-knowing experts. They said they really enjoy just hearing a couple of regular Joes talking about the issues of the day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, between us, Cleve and I have a brain and a half. I won't tell you who has the half and who has the whole brain, but that's, we're just regular guys.
And the sad thing about it is, when we first started this podcast, and I didn't really want to get started into this, David, but since it came up, it was just fun to me. It was almost just a thing of entertainment.
Yeah.
And I never dreamed you and I would be talking about things like possible World War III and the possible takeover of, not the possible, but the takeover of America by what I think was a progressive coup. Mm-hmm. Bloodless, but still, nonetheless, you can't convince me otherwise. So,
yeah. Well, and what
it's taken on a new tone.
Yeah, what you're listening to when you listen to Mere Conservatism is basically just water cooler talk.
Yeah.
At Cleve, you and I had these discussions many years before we opened up the microphones. We would sit and we'd have these talks over a cup of coffee or whatever, and we eventually started recording them, and that they haven't really changed that much, except the content in many cases has gotten much darker with much higher stakes, because now we're talking about a war. Mm-hmm. We spent the last couple of years talking about a global pandemic that was killing lots of people, and slowly encroaching soft totalitarianism by our own government here in the United States.
Now, during World War I and World War II, there were people who had to live with the daily reporting of what was going on, but they didn't have the 24/7 video, almost surveillance of something like this. I mean, so it's in your face in a way that such conflicts would never be before. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, sometimes I turn away from it when I see news of it coming on, because it's just it's too much. Sometimes
we're also so divided to begin with.
Oh my goodness!
You know, back then, the United States was more unified, just generally speaking, than we are now. So we've got lots of information, lots of sources, lots of different opinions who are very strong and will accuse other people of frankly, capital crimes. Didn't Mitt Romney say that Tulsi Gabbard was what was the word?
Treasonous.
Treasonous.
Yeah.
Which is a capital offense. That's going a little far, I think.
A little?
So, based on what she said. So, yeah, we're at a very dangerous place in our nation's history and the world's history. Nobody really knows how it's going to turn out. There's a lot of uncertainty right now.
But here's the really ironic and the really sad thing about what you just said, how divided we are. The sad thing is that we're divided, David, at this time, because our leadership of our own nation intentionally divides us. You know what I'm saying? Back in World War I and World War II, there might have been differences of opinion, and I'm sure there were passionate differences, but the divisions we have now were the deliberate plan by those who should be leading us to greater unity.
That's true, and I believe that started around 2012. Maybe right before that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there was always divisions. There were always arguments between left and right, liberals and conservatives, and some of that was passionate. But something was different about Barack Obama's campaign for his reelection when he deliberately divided the nation into subgroups.
You got it.
And put together the coalition that he ended up winning with. And I think that I don't think we've been the same since then.
The total difference, and I didn't want us to head in this direction, but so we are here, was, did you notice, though, the difference when we had a brief interlude as far as when President Bush was elected and 9/11 happened? under him, and I will always give him credit for this, the nation came together. To a certain extent. I mean, in a way that it never would have on Obama or under the president. Under Biden.
And that's true. And I think that, the nation was different then, and I think that that's evidence that the nation was different then. There was lots of infighting. There was lots of arguments between left and right, liberals and conservatives back then. But then when something happened, we all came together. Yeah. I contend, Cleve, that if 9/11 were to happen tomorrow, God forbid, something like that happened, I don't think we would get the response from the nation like we got in 2001. I don't think the same thing would happen.
I agree.
I think things have changed enough in our country in 20 years that the coming together that we saw in 2001 doesn't happen again.
And that was another one of the reasons why I thank God that we didn't have a President Al Gore during that time, because I think his reaction also would have been more on the divisive side than the side of the nation coming together patriotically.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad we didn't have Al Gore, because our nation responded somewhat appropriately when it came to foreign threats. Foreign policy is – the Democrats are just bad at it.
Yeah.
They always do the wrong thing. Obama was terrible at it. He had terrible foreign policy, cozied up to our enemies, alienated our friends. Trump did the right thing. Stood up strong.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Exercised.
I was
deterrence.
Shocked that he was good at foreign policy.
I was surprised at how good he was. No extra wars started.
Right.
Biden comes in, and it's amazing how quickly Biden has squandered relative peace. Think about our country when Joe Biden became president,
right.
and the world.
And
COVID was going on, but you had peace in the Middle East. You had Russia contained and behaving themselves.
You had China contained and behaving themselves.
You had North Korea contained and behaving themselves for the most part. You had Europe beginning to invest more in their own defense. You had Afghanistan under control.
Yeah.
Biden comes in and in a few short months blows up the whole thing.
Less than a year.
It's a disaster right now, and they really have squandered peace that they've inherited, and what you're seeing in Russia. I don't know how much you plan on talking about Russia.
You're saying, yeah, we're saying it right now. Go ahead.
But what we're seeing is the further we get into this conflict, the worse our choices get. At some point, Cleve, the United States and the West has to be strong, very strong. They have to put their foot down and do something. And see, the time to do something would have been a year ago. Just doing the exact opposite of what Joe Biden did.
Right.
This is why deterrence is so important. You want to do this way before there's a problem, because you have more choices. There's more things that you can do. The farther we get down this road with Putin, the worse our choices get.
Of course.
And Cleve, I'm telling you, I don't want the U.S. to take military action in Ukraine. There's a lot of things I don't want, but what I'm saying is our choices are getting less and less and worse the longer this goes, because as you and I discussed, I think it was before the program started, if Putin deploys a tactical nuke on the battlefield, or if Putin happens to encroach into Poland or somewhere like that, it is a war, because then it's a NATO issue, or we've got a nuke going off in Europe. That is going to require a response. I hate to tell you.
No, I follow where you're coming from, David, and here's the way I put it. It may not be saying quite the way you're putting it, or as emphatically, but here's what I think. You never should have taken anything off the table, as Biden and company have done, when it comes to dealing with nations. You don't say this will never happen, or because of this will never. To me, whether or not you say you're going to do something, you don't take it off the table. You leave it there. And I want to say there's a reason why we have our own nuclear stockpile and our own weapons, and why we are still very much in the lead in our technology. And I don't take that off the table. To me, if I'm the leader of this country, I don't bluster and threaten with it, but you leave it there, and that should become part of any negotiation. The fact that if need be, they know you will do what you got to do on behalf of this nation,
and you never want to do that, which is why this is okay. Let's call it the Barney Fife foreign policy.
Okay, I got to hear this. I love Barney Fife. So why is this Barney Fife policy?
Nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud.
Gotcha.
Okay?
I like that.
You gotta get it when it's small, Cleve.
Yeah.
Because this has now gotten a little bit out of control, and I'm telling you, the choices we have are getting worse, And we're going to have to do something we don't want to do and that nobody wants to do because, it's what we're looking at now, in my opinion, is pain now or more pain later.
Okay.
And that's why the thing about shipping MiGs into Ukraine so that Ukrainian pilots can use those against Russia, we ought to do that. And Biden and them, they're worried about that being escalatory. Well, I'm sorry, maybe it will be. Maybe it's not a great thing to have to do, but at some point we're going to have to do some stuff like this.
Let me reinterpret what you just said, at least because you just said what they say. We're afraid of it being something that will escalate things. What they're really saying is we are afraid of Russia. Okay, we don't know how they're going to react. And the minute you express that, then it is to their advantage to keep you in that fearful posture.
Well, and also they're afraid of conflict with Russia, which I understand. I don't want conflict with Russia either. But this is how you prevent it. Send the MiGs. That is how you prevent conflict with Russia. Not only that, but the Biden administration is negotiating with Iran. Using Russia as a proxy.
Yeah.
China is moving in and being a intermediary here. Other countries that are not good countries, these are our geopolitical foes, are rising in power because of the weakness of the United States. And they think that just as one example, they think that sending the MiGs is escalatory and will cause conflict. But sending the MiGs is the only way you're going to prevent something worse from happening. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And I still don't think there should be a no-fly zone or anything like that, but you got to start doing some stuff. You cannot have a negotiation with Iran with Russia at the table. They should be ostracized.
Well,
they should be out. How
can you have somebody at the table? Biden has already called Putin a war criminal. Okay.
Well, so he wasn't supposed to do that.
Well, I got a little thing about that. This is interesting, David. Russian officials this past Friday said that Biden was, quote, lobbing personal insults at Putin by describing him as a war criminal. Now, here's what the Kremlin's saying. A Kremlin spokesperson said, "We hear and see statements that are actually personal insults to President Putin. Given such irritability from Mr. Biden, his fatigue and sometimes forgetfulness, fatigue that leads to aggressive statements, we will not make harsh assessments so as not to cause more aggression."
Nice.
You know what they just did?
Oh, he's old. He's senile.
Yeah,
we'll be understanding.
And they're basically saying, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that this is a daughterly old person who's out of his depth in this. And
but the left, Cleve, was worried about our standing in the world and the respect of the world that we had lost with Trump as president. Are you joking?
Wonderful point. And so everything you said so far to me, and again, I don't want to try to interpret your statements for you, but I think we've gone over this ground before. We're finding out that appeasement and weakness does not deter aggression. It invites aggression. When they see that all you're going to do is try to appease them, which is all that Biden has tried to do. As a matter of fact, he's about to give the farm away to Iran in this treaty that they're about to do. He's about to give them everything they wanted. And they will, under this treaty, I guarantee you, have a pathway toward getting the weapon that they so much desire. And that will further destabilize that part of the world. So again, we're not talking. You and I are not war hawks, okay? In the classic sense, there are people who really do enjoy the idea of war. Right? They think they do, but we're hopefully we're just reality. We're just simply saying over and over and over again. We've learned that the enemies over there don't think like we do. The Islamic radicals, the Chinese, they don't think like we do. They understand only one thing. Are you strong? Can you back up what you say? Or can we do what they're doing?
Of you.
Yeah, and they're doing it. They literally are doing it.
And here we are. And again, a year ago, I'm saying, and I've said, a year ago, we should have been doing different things to prevent where we are now. And many other points along the way over the last year. We could have done different things to prevent where we are now. They've done the wrong thing at every turn.
Every turn. I mean, in every possible way.
The incompetence is breathtaking. By the way, this is a side note. You know, the Democrat, or Joe Biden, he doesn't want to send the MiGs, but they are sending lots of weapons. You know this, right?
Yeah,
they're sending lots of rifles, thousands of rifles, thousands of handguns. They're sending lots of rocket-propelled grenades. Lancer missiles, anti-tank missiles, stuff like that. These are, interestingly, referred to as defensive weapons. And I find it very, very interesting that the Democrats are here referring to rifles as defensive weapons. You know why they're doing that? Well, for a couple of reasons. One is because they're trying to get around anything that could be deemed escalatory.
Right.
Escalatory. But really, the reason everybody realizes that a rifle or a shotgun, which is they're sending shotguns, you know that?
Yeah.
Why a shotgun is a defensive weapon is because of how it's used. It's used by Ukrainians defending their land and their home and all those things. So I just was going to point out to the left that they're claiming that a rifle is a defensive weapon depending on how you use it. It could be an offensive weapon or it could be a defensive weapon. It matters how you use the weapon. I just for stick a pin in that for future gun control debates. That they are deeming rifles and pistols and shotguns as defensive. Rocket-propelled grenades, Cleve, defensive weapons. I'm just saying, maybe I should have a rocket-propelled grenade. I need it for defensive purposes.
Totally for defense.
Yes, only for defense.
Well, that's a great point, just as a side note. But one of the things I'm getting from this is this, all right? I am impressed with Ukraine, the nation, and the citizens of Ukraine. I'm also impressed with the Ukrainian church, all right? Time and time again, there have been statements made by leading pastors over there saying, again, our place is here. And they're doing what they can. Many of them are there in the capacity to help the soldiers, those who are staying to fight. But so I like that. But listen to this, and this is why some people say that Russia actually was caught by surprise by the resistance. Invading Russian forces, they say, have become so demoralized that in one instance they were found to be shooting themselves in the legs with Ukrainian ammunition so that they could be out of the fight. This was reported, by the way, in the U.S. Sun newspaper. The outlet said that the Russian troops look for Ukrainian ammunition to use so they can receive medical treatments without it appearing as if their wounds were indeed self-inflicted. A conversation between Russian soldiers was intercepted by a media outlet in Belarus. And it said that one Russian soldier is reportedly heard saying, "They have been shooting at us for 14 days. We're scared. We're stealing food. We're breaking into houses. We're killing civilians." So there is some truth to what you might have been hearing, that among the Russian soldiers is a sense that we don't want to be here. Yeah. And so when you have that, and then you meet real resistance. Of course, Putin's not going to admit this. Matter of fact, they did a rally a few days ago, Putin did, a la Trump style, in which he was praising his military for the amazing work that they're doing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there is something at least positive about this awful thing to take away from when the citizens of a nation say, we're going to fight till the end. Because I don't think America says that right now if we were in the same situation. I'm talking about the individual citizens.
And America has much less tolerance for casualties. We are a very efficient fighting force.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, if we were to do an operation like this, many fewer of our service members would die.
That's a good point.
Many fewer civilians would die. It would be pinprick. It would be surgical. Those types of things. Not every country is like that when they do wars,
and apparently Russia is not.
Russia apparently is not, and I think it's Western countries that are probably more like us. Countries like Israel, some of the European countries, NATO, the United States. We have the ability and the desire to do that. They don't.
A prediction from me: I don't believe that Russia ever goes to tactical nuclear options. I really don't. But I perceive the strong possibility of chemical warfare being introduced into this by Russia, particularly if there is continual feelings that they're not doing as well as they say they are. Because Putin wants to get this over with, David.
They're going to find a way if they do that. If they think they have an opening to blame it on Ukraine.
Yeah, they've already started that.
They will do it.
I mean, to me, they're mentioning the biolab, which is there, by the way, ostensibly not for the purposes that the Russians are accusing them of. But if they can get anything that would say, hey, we had to do thus and so because they were getting ready to unleash a biological agent.
Russians don't say thus and so.
Well,
that's a Mississippi thing.
We had to respond that way because there was a threat that they were going to unleash some type of biological agent, so we didn't have time. We had to make sure. So they will do anything under Putin. And again, my heart goes out to the Russian populace, who I don't believe support this war. But this is a guy who makes even Biden and the cancel culture here looks like pikers. I mean, look like nothing. And he's already said we're going to. Putin has said we're going to purge the people in our own country who are subversive and who are basically towing the line of the adversaries, which is in mind anybody who disagrees with me. So that's a factor right there. China don't have that problem because in China you don't.
They just weld people into their homes.
That's right. I'm laughing. But I'm laughing, but I'm crying also on the inside because, David, again, I did not expect this, and I truly believe Putin made this move now because Biden is in office. I don't think he does this if President Trump is doing a second term right now.
Well, our country, Cleve, is totally demoralized, and we've lost all moral authority. I mean, you got in Putin doing this terrible thing in Ukraine. Meanwhile, in America, we're transing the kids. We are we got Leah Thomas as champion swimmer and what's his face as the woman of the year, the Health and Human Secretary.
I saw that, yeah.
And so I'm just saying, like, Putin is bad. What he's doing is really bad. It's terrible. I said the same thing when I looked at Canada and what they were doing. The United States is in shambles. Yeah. When you look at the stuff that we're up to. And we have I would have said a couple of years ago, like I told you, I would have said annex Canada. Just take them. You're ours now, all right? You're our hat. Now you are one of us. But we don't have the moral authority to do something like that as the United States of America. We're in such bad shape here in our culture.
But David, here's the thing. Everything you just said is true, and I agree with it 100%, particularly the transgender movement and things like that, which are straight from the pits of hell as far as I'm concerned. However, I still believe this does not represent the majority of the people in our nation. It represents, unfortunately, the people who are at the controls. Okay, I believe that they have always had an outsized voice thanks to the media and everything else, and now that they're at the levers of power, now they can carry out their agenda.
You might even call them the one percenters.
Well, every poll shows, you're laughing, but every poll shows that the majority of Americans are not for this. But they're being canceled and cowed and marginalized. And this is
the left's totalitarianism. It is. We are seeing it in our country. We're seeing totalitarianism from the left,
from an elite few,
and an elite few, and they're pulling the trigger. They have been laying these plans. They have been getting people in place and things in place, and now they're executing the plan. And it's not good. And we have a real problem in the West, Cleve, because now we got this digital currency thing happening that looks like they're going to be able to deperson you. Yeah. At the drop of a hat, if you post
and the digital
thing
currency actually was a good idea at the start because the way it originally starts and is operating now for a short while, it was operating outside of a lot of government control. So basically, it was actually putting more of your monetary power back into the private hands, away from big banks.
Yeah, but that's not the way. If
the
U.S. digital dollar happens,
that's my point.
Then they control every little bit of transaction you can do, and just like they have done to Putin in Russia, they will cut you off.
It's funny you bring that up because there's a little thing in the Bible where it talks about a time when the entire monetary system will be controlled so that unless you toe the line, you don't get to buy or eat or sell.
That's right.
It's funny. I don't know. I just thought something that came in my mind.
It's a little scary, isn't it?
Well, it's scary. But at the same time,
I've read the Left Behind books. It's super scary.
but at the same time, again, here's the difference for people of faith. And I actually I take comfort in this because I still don't believe this nation as constituted in the electorate, actually chose Biden. If I felt they did, I believe they elected Obama. I really believe that Obama was elected legitimately for 2 terms. I believe that, and that was what was so disheartening around for me. I don't believe that happened this time. I believe it was a soft coup.
81
and so it was not
votes.
Right. It was not the choice. And so for me, I think if God's holding any mercy out on our nation, I'm hoping that that's one of the considerations, that this was foisted upon us through chicanery and vote fraud, which, by the way, is still their only hope. If they win,
New York. I just want to mention, because I saw this yesterday, the New York Times just came out and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, that Hunter Biden laptop story, that was totally legit. All that was absolutely true."
I'm not a violent person. I want to blow their building up.
Cleve, the media and big tech before the election, they were blocking people off of social media for sharing this story.
Yeah, I know.
They were saying it's false. They were saying it's Russian disinformation.
Even though they knew the laptop actually existed, they were treating it as if it were not.
And now, by the way, that was all true, by the way, but don't worry about that. That is how you rig an election.
Yes.
That is the kind of thing. And somebody online, they said, what was Hunter Biden running for? Why was Hunter, who cares? Hunter Biden wasn't running for anything. I'm like, you're right. Hunter Biden wasn't running for president. So why did they block the story? Why did they delete people who shared it? Why did they, the intelligence community, quote unquote, come out with a signed letter saying it looks like Russian disinformation? Why were they so all over it if Hunter Biden wasn't running for office? You know why.
Yes.
So stop being an idiot.
Yeah. So again, questions asked by people for disingenuous reasons. Well, David, believe it or not, we're coming to the close. You literally covered everything I had in mind, and very important things as this war continues. And we don't know what's happening by the time you hear this podcast. Something dramatic might have taken place that might have changed the whole complexion of our discussion, but it hasn't at this point. So if they want to hear this again, David, they always had an option.
Yeah, check it out on the Apple Podcast app. You can also find us on Facebook, MereConservatism, or on YouTube at MereCon Media.
That's David Perry, and I'm Cleve Walker. This has been MereConservatism. As always, don't give up yet. Keep the faith. It's not over with.